What are your thoughts about Marion Barber's passing at 38 years old?
Dude, I feel like there's just so many players passing recently. Vincent Jackson, obviously you had Demarius Thomas, so many young individuals. God knows what they've been going through. Who knows what they've been doing with their lives? Hopefully they find no foul play in this. But it just there's not much you can say as a football fan, as a human being. You wish nothing but the best for his family and his loved ones. You send all the condolences in the world to his kids and whoever else he left behind. But you have to look back at the man in his career and what he'd brought to football, and that was a warrior mentality. I mean, the man was called Marion the Barbarian for a reason. He never shied away from contact, a very physical player, a very in-your-face running back that was never going to shy away from any hit from any individual in the NFL at any point. And he ran between the tackles with every ounce of strength that he had. I mean, some of his runs were sports in top 10 plays growing up. I mean, he was notably, I want to say, throughout the end of junior high for us into high school, and then he kind of fizzled out. He got older, and then, he kind of was, dwindled out of the rotation in Dallas. But for the majority of his career, we know him to be one of those physical dominating running backs that we haven't seen in quite some time. And at that time, it was definitely unheard of because the game was kind of transitioning into that quarterback heavy, kind of shifty running back era. And Marion was kind of like a blast from the past from the 80s. And he was just head down, knock you on your ass, and definitely make you remember that you'd never want to come at him again, especially if it was in between the tackles. So we remember Marion for the individual that he was and the human being that he was, but on the field we knew he was a warrior and we knew how much he meant to the Cowboys organization. But again, man, my heart breaks for stories like this, especially because you don't know what's going on to find a loved one or an individual, or hear that an individual that you know of pass away in their home. It's an eerie feeling, and it's definitely a sad day in football and a sad day for those that loved him, man. So rest in peace to him, and I hope that his family finds um some peace, and I hope that people respect what they're going through, man. My condolences to those people.
Yeah, Kev, I'm of the similar sentiment here. It's awful when we get these stories of former NFL players passing, especially at such a young age. Really, the one that kind of stuck out to both of us recently was the Demarius Thomas passing. I mean, he was in his like mid 30s, and that one really caught us off guard. And this one, in a similar extent, is the same thing. I mean, for God's sakes, the guy was 38 years old. Now, granted, he hasn't played in the NFL in over a decade, but still, I mean, 38 years old. It's so early to go. It's just so unfortunate. So, I definitely extend my thoughts and prayers to his family, knowing what they're going through right now. I mean, when I look at Marion Barber's career, I mean, the one thing that I vividly remember about Marion specifically was I think he had undoubtedly the greatest 2 yard run I've ever seen. It was a game against the Patriots in 2007. This was when the Patriots were going on their undefeated season run. And I remember Tony Romo, he handed it off to Marion Barber. The play was going absolutely nowhere just because the Patriots defensive line just blew up the Cowboys offensive line. And yet, despite that, despite all the defensive pressures that New England's defense was giving against Marion Barber, Marion broke like 3 or 4 tackles on that play, most of them coming within the end zone. So had he been tackled, it would have been a safety, and was able to get away from all the New England defenders and get a 2 yard game when it looked like it was going to be a safety. And that's just kind of one of the things is that Marion would find a way to be able to extend the play, to be able to get past that first contact, to extend the play, to get some extra yards on top of that. And I think one of the things that even like you could look back to in his career with Dallas is that he was a solid force out of the backfield in the passing game because after his rookie season, if I look at actually his receiving totals every year to about 2008, they were increasing to the point where he had 52 receptions and about just a touch over 400 yards receiving as a running back. And you combine that with what he did on the ground, he had close to almost 1,300 purpose yards, I mean, altogether in 2008, and that's when really he was one of the primary forces that the Cowboys had in their run game. So, when I look at what he was able to do, he was great for what Dallas needed at the time. He was a physical back, didn't shy away from contact. And I remember, I think somebody was even saying, like, Marion Barber was like the early version of like what Marshawn Lynch ended up being, just like that running back that would just refuse to go down and would try to extend a play as much as possible to just get an extra couple yards and even maybe even try to turn it into a touchdown as well. So it's unfortunate, that this event happened. Just it's very difficult for me to know that at 38 years old, there's so much life left. Usually at 38 years old, most of the time, people are halfway through their lives, and unfortunately, for Marion's case, his comes to a very unfortunate end, and it's just very sad. No matter how you look at this, so like I said at the top, I just give my thoughts and prayers to his family. This is just a terrible situation that nobody wants to see, and I hope his family can find some sort of peace in the grieving process. But rest in peace to Marion Barber. He will be missed.